Your front brake is a trigger for trouble. If you only use your rear brake when trying to stop, you'll never go over the bars. New problem though, you might never stop. Anybody with a bike could and should do this simple experiment. Walk beside your bike and, at walking speed, maintain your momentum while grabbing a mitt full of rear brake. You'll slow down, release the brake, continue walking forward, and again, while maintaining forward momentum, grab a mitt full of front brake. And there goes your ass right over your tea kettle. And in one way, it's all the proof someone might need to say that the front brake is dangerous, and subsequently you should use more rear brake than front so you don't go over the bars. So, front brake, dangerous! Or is front brake like toothpaste? Actually, both brakes are like toothpaste. The reality is our little experiment just showed that the front brake is the one that's best at stopping the bike. But thinking that way just takes the human catapulting over the bars out of the situation. And we don't need to do that because the firm of Musk, Zuck, and Thiele is already working hard at taking humans out across the board. So let's put the human back in. I'm sure everyone has a story about a friend, a cousin, a brother, a bear riding a bicycle who ended up grabbing a mitt full of brakes and going over the front bars. And while those stories about going over the bars with the front brake may be true, except for the bear part, everybody knows bears ride tricycles or Ducatis. It is worth using a little critical thought to avoid needing critical care. You see, society has learned about braking the way it learns about anything, which is through fake news and storytelling. And I put it to you that it's actually the rider's fault, not the front brakes. And stories to the otherwise just prove humanity's desire to not be accountable. This whole thing, it pivots around one point. It's this one. This point right here. You see, the assumption is that when you go to brake and your front brake is heavily involved, that your weight will rapidly pivot around this point, resulting in a mess. And there's a truth to this idea. Physics says that as the forces of braking are being applied through your front tire, that the bike will begin to slow down. But your body has momentum, and physics also says that an object in motion will continue and remain in motion unless a force stops it. So when a rider locks their arms in extension to prevent themselves from going towards the handlebar, the only place left for that forward momentum to go is into rotational motion around the front axle. So that energy of forward momentum gets converted into angular rotation of you over the bars into the ground. If your center of mass moves past the point that is your front axle, gravity finishes the job and you wish you were wearing a full face helmet. And it's here that things get scrambled. Because you do want to stop, don't you? I mean, the scenario we're talking about is the one wherein you want to stop as fast as possible, is it not? Well, that experiment that we did at the beginning of this showed us just how strong the front brake is, but it also showed us just how crap the rear brake is at bringing us to a stop. So, you like your teeth and want to stop. Well, there's a better answer than just dropping an anchor out the back and expecting it to do all the work. And you can fully harness the better power and stopping of the front brake safely by just remembering a few simple things. The first of which is, as I mentioned before, that brakes are like toothpaste. Come into the bathroom. When you go to brush your teeth, do you want all of the toothpaste? No, you don't. You only want the right amount of toothpaste. Ugh. And a progressive squeeze on the brakes transitions the forces softly, or at least begins to, and more importantly, softens your body. Just like the toothpaste scenario, a little bit of body English can change the forces involved entirely and keep our teeth in our mouth. Under hard braking, it's easy to freeze, and any scenario where a person finds themselves suddenly trying to prevent the movement of going forward, they freeze and lock up their arms. It is this exact moment where physics decides whether or not it is going to send you OTB. That's over the bars for those not hip to the lingo. Hip to the lingo means, you know, like reading my mail, riding my bike, picking up what I'm putting down, inside baseball, catching my... So, people tend to stick their arms out in front of them as a lizard brain response to their body pitching forward. That's why foosh is a term you can use in the hospital emergency room to explain how you broke your wrists. It's a legitimate medical term. But those stiffies in front of you have just become levers, not cushions. And those levers have raised your torso. Stiffies is not a medical term. Stiffies is innuendo, because we're talking about a scenario where innuendo. So your center of mass has just initiated a movement towards the danger of moving your mass past the front axle limit. And your arms go from pushing the weight of your torso away from the bars to an extension of the forces moving around your axle, subsequently catapulting you over the front end. Then, this horrible injury, after you've recovered from concussion, becomes a story passed down generation after generations, at which point everyone understands that the villain is the front brake rather than your actions, because we're all the heroes of our own story, and our version of the truth is definitely the correct perspective. As soon as you straight arm the front of the bike and turn those arms into levers, you're doomed. You need your elbows bent. At first, this seems very counterintuitive. But upon bending your elbows, your muscles will engage because you're not using your skeleton to brace yourself anymore. And the bending of your arms actually lowers your torso. Of course, you don't want to lower yourself right into your handlebar because, as much as that is a less scary crash, it is still a crash. The good thing is at this point is that terror will be accommodating some of your riding skills. You'll be more naturally pushing yourselves away from the front of the bike using your muscles. All you need to do now is drop your heels a little bit and shift your butt even the slightest rearward, and that lowering of your torso and hips becomes the counterforces that make it almost impossible to go over the front of the bike. The momentum that your body had that was going to become rotational around the axle now gets spread out over multiple elements. Muscles, a little bit of soft reactive body movements, and maybe a little bit into that brown stain that now graces your underpants. So you can, if you want, continue to use your rear brake to stop. Ooh, oh God. No one's gonna stop you because you'll be sliding. You can't stop. Let's try it again. Or you can harness the power of your front brake, remembering two things. First, that brakes are like toothpaste. You only take what you want to take. And the second thing is brakes on, butt back. Just say to yourself in your head, every time you put the brakes on, butt back. Brakes on, butt back. Even the slightest little move in the buttoral region will induce the physics to prevent you from going over the bars, lowering your center of mass. The most important thing, though, you can really do is practice. Go into a parking lot, do some hard sprints, and then slam on the brakes. A little bit of toothpaste and moving your butt just slightly rearward, and you will be a stopping champ. Eventually, you should be pushing like 70% of your stopping power through the front brake, the rest through the rear. For now, just start with 50-50, even squeezing. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Most importantly, share this with someone who thinks that the front brake is dangerous and that they should use more rear brake. It'll be good for them. In the meantime, hit the like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and keep that toothpaste in the tube.